Hey, it's Jim Jessup from QuickPath Software. I'm the co-founder and COO. I'm just here today to talk about my experience, my career experience in IT.
Awesome. Thank you for being here, first of all. Can you tell us about how you got started in IT?
That's what awesome. Yeah, so I've been in the industry for I guess about 21 years now. I got started in the late 90s and actually started going to school for IT in the mid 90s in university. Around the time where we were using Windows 95 of all things. This is back when Steve Ballmer was dancing on stage, sweating profusely with Bill Gates. Not really sure that got me too excited about it. But for me personally, I mean, I was always, I was more into sports when I was younger. I was, good at math and logic and things like that. But back in the 80s and so on, computers weren't really a big thing other than maybe, the original Macintosh and stuff like that. But it was really just messing around with my parents' VCRs and things like that, trying to fix things that kind of got me interested. And at the time, IT was kind of starting to become a bit more of a career choice in the mid 90s. So, once I got into university, I made the conscious choice that, hey, I'll just give this a shot. And, kind of the rest was history. But really, I started out in doing computer science and, that was obviously quite challenging and stuff like that for development. But, most people who get started either have to choose, am I going to go down that one path of computer science? Am I going to be a developer, website programmer, that sort of thing? Or am I going to go into IT? And back then they didn't really have, IT management, courses in university. It was just more generic computer science. And then you'd have the Microsoft certification. So that was kind of what really got me the main sort of educational background to get a job in the first place was the Microsoft stuff.
Awesome. So what like initially, I guess, like piqued your interest about IT as a career? Like, can you remember back that far on what kind of just triggered that?
Well, I think a lot of it was, I was always the person that helped out at the house with like tech stuff. And I liked fixing things and I liked helping people. So I think that's kind of a big thing in IT. Like if you're a developer, you're pretty much always just have to be in the zone at a computer coding, with a bunch of Coca-Colas going at it all night. And it's just you and the computer. And you're not really dealing with people. So I think for me as well as, I was more of a people person. And I think that's, a big determining factor too about going into IT. Even within IT, you can be, high level consultant or something like that and just work on the technology aspect of it. But the big thing that I found over my career is that it's really being able to bridge the gap between understanding technology and being able to implement it, but also being able to translate that to your average person, average business executive, things like that. So that's kind of what also attracted it to me.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things I always talk about is like, customer service skills, people skills. Those are skills that we need in the industry. Anybody can learn technology, but really becoming proficient in customer service and communication, that's something that's going to help you get hired in this field and continue to grow in this field, because there is such I think there's a lot of miscommunication with how IT professionals are perceived. And I think hopefully as the years are going on, that's starting to go by the wayside, that we're all stuck in the basement, we're nerds and we're antisocial and whatnot. A lot of the people that I've been working with are very outgoing and love helping people and can communicate very well with other people as well. And I think that's a huge part of the field, especially as you're getting into it. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah. And I mean, kind of to that point as well, I mean, not only working myself, but also hiring people and having people work under me is that, you can always teach a new technology to somebody, right? You can get them trained up, they can learn on the job, that sort of thing. But it's really difficult to train somebody's character, right? If they're a people person, if they're really good at customer service, like you said, and support and being very responsive. Like even if somebody started out, at a low level tier 1 support job, but they were, always on time, very responsive, customer service was great, they can learn the technology. Yeah. Right. So from that perspective, I mean, it's all about just being, a good person, being responsible. The technology stuff, can come with the experience, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're a big shot now with your own company here, but what was your first job in IT?
My first job was working as a network administrator for a manufacturing company in the rail industry, of all places, up in Canada. And so, most of the people in the company were, in research and development. They were chemists, or they were working on railroads to, apply the special lubricant to trains and stuff like that. So it was really not a tech job. And I actually was working on their IT and their marketing for a bit of time in terms of online marketing. But it was a really great experience to get that industry experience. And I think, that's really, it's just kind of like accounting. You can either work in an accounting firm, kind of like an IT consulting firm, MSP, or you can work in the industry for an actual, a regular company, right? And I think both have their advantages and disadvantages, but the advantage is really being able to learn how other companies run and see how technology can really benefit them, and really getting that close relationship with people that have nothing to do with technology, right? Whereas when you're at a service provider, it's just all about the technology, and it's really hard to develop that understanding of how businesses run unless you really have an eye for it.
Yeah, and then that's something I talk about a lot. Also, is just getting into the field. That's like the first hurdle, but understanding how an enterprise environment works is a whole nother task in itself of learning, developing, and continuous like learning and growth with that. The tech skills, like we mentioned, anybody can learn those, but getting the actual hands-on experience within an environment and understanding the different policies and procedures and stuff that happens within those environments is, I think, crucial. And that's, I think, one thing where many companies are looking for people with experience. It's maybe they're not necessarily looking for somebody with all the technical experience. They're looking for somebody who has experience working in industries that relate to IT in some way, as far as just understanding, the culture of what an enterprise business would offer.
I couldn't agree more. Really, it comes down to, like you said, it's understanding how businesses run, right? Because there's so many times where I've worked with people who, have only worked in a consulting firm and like tech support, and they just don't. When somebody comes with a problem, like it'll be a very simple issue, but they can't get their job done, right? They can't get their month-end accounting done or something like that. Or some big project out, and they don't really understand that even though their job might be what they think is insignificant, it's actually hugely important to help this person get their job done, because if they don't, then pretty much everything falls apart in the business, right? And so it's being able to kind of understand, what's really important, and recognize certain situations where, hey, I need to kind of up my game to make sure I get this problem solved as soon as possible, so that this other person can actually get their job done, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what types of advice, I guess, would you have for people nowadays who are looking to get in IT? Because I started, it was about 2000 when I really got started working within this field, and things were so much different back then. Like, if you knew how to turn on a computer, like you were tech support, like
Right,
that's how it felt back then. So nowadays it's much different. I feel like nowadays, just being able to turn on a computer. A lot of people can say, "Oh, I know how to build a computer, so I can work in IT," but that's really not the case. What advice do you have for, as far as that goes?
The one thing that I would say, and this is I think true in any time, and more in particular now, is actually not necessarily something related to technology, but more in terms of general skills, and that's critical thinking. Mm-hmm. And it's one thing that it's very hard to come by in a lot of people, and even more so these days. So for example, you can have somebody who's had all the training. They might have done a computer science degree, a master's degree in computer science. They might even have a PhD, but then they'll go in and actually work, in a company. And unless somebody tells them exactly what needs to be done, they can't even figure it out.
Right.
So there's actually the one things that I really realized when I went to school that really benefited me were things that weren't actually related to computers. One was a philosophy course called Critical Thinking, that actually, was basically the computer logic form of philosophy, but derived of the English language. And then also there was a similar course in computer science called Discrete Mathematics, which basically used the same principles, but for math, right? And that's, how to understand logic, how to reason, because that's really a huge problem these days, especially with, different, there's new generations that are being brought up where, unfortunately it's a parenting thing where, parents will, do everything for their kids. They won't be independent. They'll tell them exactly what they have to do, or they'll do it for them. And then these people get into the workplace, and now they're presented with challenges where they might not know the answer right away, and they just kind of put their hands up and go, I have no idea what to do. Right. So from my perspective, not only working in the industry, but also hiring people, is that the ability to be a critical thinker and to figure things out that they don't know the answer for right off the bat is probably the most important skill, I would say, out of knowing any specific technology.
So how did you get started doing consulting or working within an MSP?
So after I'd worked for about 7 or 8 years in the industry for that manufacturing company, I realized that, I kind of learned most of the things that I can learn in that one environment. And one of the things that I realized that I was lacking was being able to have the experience to manage multiple environments at multiple customers and just being exposed to multiple technologies. And that was the one thing that I just didn't have. So that's kind of what attracted me to wanting to work at a service provider / MSP. And to be honest, it was easy to find a job because there's usually lots of work out there, but it was a big eye opener where, suddenly I was exposed to 100 different combinations of what I maybe only saw a few of before. And so it was actually quite a big challenge to get up to speed with, how all these alternate ways that all these different companies had things set up, different technologies they had used. But it was also very exciting, right? So, working in the industry versus working for an MSP, both have their advantages, and drawbacks. And so I really encourage people to try them both because they kind of get that full experience, especially, if you're younger and you want to kind of move up in the career.
Yeah, for sure. MSPs are a great way to get thrown into the mix of things right away. You get a lot of stuff thrown at you.
100%, yeah.
So then would you say that your experience working within MSPs kind of guided your way towards you starting your own business?
Yeah, 100%. So, it's one of those things, and this is, it's going to be different from a person to person basis, is that, you'll work at an MSP, and if you really have the desire to do something more, or in my case, I was, me and a few other guys were working at an MSP together, and we realized, we weren't really happy with how things were going, and figured that, that we could do it better, and just thought, hey, let's give this a shot. We were very fortunate enough that, we were able to get a number of clients, in the very short period, clients that we had dealt with before that chose, to go with us. But, in a sense, we had to take a risk, right? And I think that's, something that a lot of people are afraid of, in any type of, career is trying to go it on your own. But I would say in terms of the MSP, it was something that was a little bit easier to get started in our own business as I would thought. But it is a lot of work. But I would encourage people to not let, their doubts get in their way for giving it a shot, because at the end of the day, you can always go get another job, right? If you really wanted to. That being said, working in an MSP or owning an MSP for a number of years also allowed myself to get experience in the industry, so that when a very good friend of mine approached me a few years ago, who's a software developer who went the complete other direction as me, and that had a development team available to him, but no ideas of what products to make. And I think that's where, if you're working in an industry, and specifically as for an MSP, and you see an opportunity, because there are lots of opportunities to create different products that either don't exist or to make them better. And, we really came onto an opportunity to see that. And, it was just a matter of having somebody joined up that, had a team to be able to develop the software side of it.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us how Quick Pass got started and what you guys do.
Yeah, for sure. So we got started about 2018, and like I was just saying before, my business partner, who is actually a longtime friend, and we went to university together, and he went into software development, worked for Adobe and Microsoft and a few other places, but just didn't have that specific industry knowledge. So he kept bugging me for years. Hey, you got to tell me about a product. And I'm like, yeah, I'm too busy. I got too many things to do. And then we, stumbled upon an issue that I had actually been dealing with for a number of years, related to cybersecurity, which was a number of things. One was, password reset tickets and account unlocks and rotating administrator passwords, which were just things that I never had time to do. And we were always trying to cut corners, right? And I realized there's got to be a better way. So we joined up and started mapping things out and realized that, there wasn't really a lot of things out there to do this effectively for the industry at a decent price point. So that's kind of how we got started. And then I ended up finding a buyer for my MSP, and now I've put all my money into this new company. So
what do you guys do? To go into a little bit detail on what it is that you guys offer over there.
Yeah, so we do a few things. So the main thing we offer is a self-serve password reset and account unlock tool for MSPs and IT departments. So via a mobile app, as well as a self-serve web app. And we also offer customer identity verification. So for example, if somebody calls tech support at an IT department, a service provider, and they want to figure out who that is, via the mobile app, they can send a signal and it sends them a push notification, and they can accept it or decline it. And then the MSP or IT department knows that it is in fact, Sally who is, called us on the phone. And then we also do password rotation for administrator and service accounts for both Active Directory and Office 365, which again is a huge problem that I had in my MSP, and it is becoming a much bigger problem nowadays because with all the ransomware risks and so on, and technicians leaving and then trying to sell credentials, on the dark web, for example.
Right. Yeah. What was it, like 90 out of 100 calls or password resets or something? I'm sure you got some statistics on that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's, the research done is it's about average cost about $25 US per ticket that comes in. I mean, you think it's a pretty simple thing, but if you kind of add in all the time it takes to walk the user through, okay, I'm going to do it for you. Now I'm going to walk you through, okay, getting back into your computer and resetting it on your phone. It ends up being a huge pain in the butt. So if you have, hundreds of, thousands of users doing it, I mean, it's a substantial cost that it's just borderline ridiculous, and nobody wants to do it either.
Yeah,
at least I do.
True. That is always the bane of my existence. Every time a user called, hey, I forgot my password.
You're like, can't you just do that yourself?
Yeah, right. It would have been so much easier. Like, just go to this link or open this app. It'll do it for you, right?
Exactly,
apps do
right.
And nowadays, that's awesome. I love that you guys are offering that. So I know you and I will be talking further, I think, on this and getting maybe more into detail on the service that you guys offer and showing people how that works and why it's important, which I think it's extremely important in today's age. So the fact that you guys kind of offer that availability of self-service, I think, is huge, which even more so now, I think, than ever with this whole, pandemic that's been happening. Although work from home, I'm sure has been a huge ordeal for people to deal with, especially with passwords and managing all those and stuff like that.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to add, throw in there?
No, I think it's all good from my end, unless you had any other questions.
I don't think so. I mean, it really is just, introducing people to who you are and what you're doing and sharing that story. I mean, the story is, people just love hearing how people got started, and it's like you're successful and people want to see that. You started in the 90s and here you are today, still, successful. So I think people need that encouragement, need that motivation.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm here for. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you doing this with me today.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, man. I appreciate your time.